Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Pope.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good. How you doing today? Good. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. To talk about all these things I'm talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
Yo, it's First Contact with Joshua Pope. He's the man on the mic, just in case you didn't know it. Covering news from all around the globe, from the weather and space to UFOs. We'll talk politics and make you open your eyes. Conspiracy theories and government lies. We'll dig it all up and try to find the proof. Cause it's time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand
First Contact Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
Good morning, Earthlings. Welcome to First Contact Radio. Glad you could be back today. Today is the 7th of January. Right here, 7th of January. Sun sign in Capricorn, moon sign in Sagittarius, just like it was yesterday. Aspects for today, we've already gone over one of them, which was the Sun in a square with Uranus. That was at 6:22 a.m. and then the Uranus is also going to be in a trine with the moon sign Sagittarius coming up at 8:29 a.m. And then we have a couple more squares in the course of the day. 10:28 a.m. Chiron, the wounded healer, is there going to be in a square with the moon as well as Jupiter. I want to show you here just what a square is. When you're looking at these, you can kind of understand a bit of what they are about. Here is our sun sign. It says our sun sign is going to be square with Uranus. Well, square is 90 degrees. So each one of these is 30 degrees. So you go 10, 20, 30 right here. There's a square. So we would look over here, 10, 20, 30. There's nothing over here. Or, 30, 60, 90. Nothing here at the moment, and we can come back to here. Okay, so we look at every 90 degrees for a square. Whereas a trine is a little bit more. It's 4. So it's 120 degrees. So we see that we have a trine right here between the moon sign and Uranus. The moon and Uranus. So here is this. And so we're going to look at the moon, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we look, keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nothing here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our moon sign again. Okay, because a trine means 3. So there's 3 points of the triangle, whereas a square you have 4 points. Okay, so that's when you're looking at these just to see what's going on, what that actually means. Okay, so whenever these squares come up, these 90-degree angle ones, we have some lessons we're learning. It's like we were come up against a wall, and we need to learn some sort of a lesson, whereas the trine is something a little bit more advantageous energetic-wise. Doesn't mean that these squares don't have some benefit, because they do, because we learn a lot through sometimes some tough lessons we have to deal with. Now, just a reminder, Capricorn is an earth sign. Capricorn is about the physical world, what is going on in the physical world. We don't want to completely turn our back against the physical world, because guess what? This is where we are. So we need to pay attention to where we are at the moment, while understanding that there is a bigger picture and we are a part of something much bigger than just here. But while we are in the physical world, we need to move and operate and take care of business down here. Things in the physical world, we have our careers, our jobs, anything related to the physical reality. However, we're reminded, because of this card here, the tarot card which represents Capricorn, we're reminded to continually look past the physical world. Don't get so caught up that you think that that's all that there is, because it's real easy to do that. We want to continue to remind ourselves of the higher ideal, and this is what this is about, temperance. This is the card of Sagittarius, looking for the truth. We want to look for the truth to understand what this really represents, what this is and what it isn't, and the angel helps us to do that because the angel is our higher self, whereas this represents our animal nature. Doesn't mean that there isn't some creatures or characters maybe in the universe that does look like this. I mean, these ideas that the ancients had of these creatures came from somewhere, but it doesn't mean they are what we think and we've been told that they are. Remember, things are not always as they appear to be. Sort of like in the story of the Nag Hammadi, we're told that the creator, Yahweh, is the one who created everything, all this good stuff. But then we read the Nag Hammadi library and we see that Yahweh is actually Yaldabaoth, who is the one that the stories of the devil actually and Satan that we know of actually relate to. So things aren't as they appear. We have to dig to find out what is the real story, what is not, because there's a difference. One telling that, Yahweh was the good guy, one saying Yahweh was the one who was holding things back. Which one was it? Well, truthfulness, digging will help us to find that. So this is part of it. Digging to find the truth. What's real? What's not? What's real? What's not? That's our lesson for today. And then, of course, we have the Wounded Healer coming up, and that's healing with truth, that aspect of ourselves that is buried down deep, that needs to have some sort of understanding to get past whatever this healing is. And then the expansion that occurs with Jupiter tonight expands all of this truthfulness. So truthfulness is the order of the day, looking for truth, understanding truth, how that applies and plays itself out in our lives. Okay. Moon is 6.9% of the way full. It's just about back to a new moon. It's going to be there 5:30 p.m. January 9th. That's Los Angeles time. So 2 days from now. We're just a little bit more than 48 hours away from that. Jewish calendar 26 Tevat. 26 Tevet. We're coming to the end of the month on the Jewish calendar. We could see that next week on Monday starts a new calendar date. So we are at the end of a month in the Jewish calendar. The daily thought for today. Oh, missed the daily thought. And let's see here. Rhythmic storm, guided by the storm, is today. I organize in order to catalyze balancing energy. I seal the matrix of self-generation with the rhythmic tone of equality. I am guided by my own power doubled. Weather, solar wind, 560, 5.4 kilometers per second. Planetary K index, unsettled at a 4. More than likely getting hit by all of that wind that was coming off the coronal holes, which now have really moved and subsided, but nonetheless feeling the effect from that. M-class flare possibility is at 1, X at 1. Geomagnetic storm activity seems to be decreasing a bit. In the mid-latitudes, it's dropping from 30 to 15. In the upper latitudes, from 40 down to 25. And last, looking up at the sky, right here, the 7th, this is before sunrise. We have our moon, Saturn, Venus off to the left. It says, before moonlight returns to the evening sky, explore some new signs in Upper Endius with your scope using Sue French's Deep Sky Wonders column chart and photos. All right, so we have some nice, good info here. You might want to check this out to really get into the sky watching a bit more. And there you have it. So that's our cosmic weather. Basically, the energy around us that we're dealing with. Truthfulness is in the air. Truthfulness is definitely in the air. All right, there you go. UFO News is up next. Here we go.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. So today's UFO News, we have 4 good stories here. Story number 1. Story number 1, a UFO caught during New Year's Eve full moon over England. There's our little object. Either that is a moth in front of the camera or something up higher by the moon, and we're told it's up by the moon. When a St. Helens based painter and director pointed his camera to the sky to capture the first moon of 2016, he unwittingly videoed an unidentified flying object passing over it. Mike Dean, 43, had climbed to the top of Village Hill to film the New Year's Eve fireworks at midnight. When they finished, he left his Sony camera pointing at the moon for a few minutes while he had beer and his mates who had joined him up in the hill. The group of friends then headed back to Mike's house to watch the firework footage, only to spot a quite unexpected, mysterious object passing over the moon at 12:20 a.m. Mike said, "I was very surprised that it was only meaning to shoot the first New Year's moon." He told the Echo, "It got me and my friends talking. We kept rewinding it and debating what it was." Mike, who does not believe in aliens, thinks the UFO is a satellite, although some of the friends aren't too sure. He said, "I don't think it's an alien because it's still a mystery, an unexplained thing in my camera. I don't think it's plane because they often have flashing lights and leave a vapor. The object looks like it's out of the atmosphere." Okay. And then, of course, we have a video here. And here's the video as he's pulling away. And there's our object right there. Now, that object obviously is a very large object that we're seeing against the moon there. Alright. It does seem to be a good sized object in comparison to the moon, whatever it may be. And it is moving pretty quick. So is it something way up there by the moon, or is it something much closer to the camera? Good point, good question. Moving on. UFO crossing the moon. Here we have another one on the 5th of the month. As I was looking over some screenshots, put in autofocus, came out like this. The moon is more in focus, and the color of the UFO is actually green. I love seeing the UFO with the moon backdrop. Kind of puts everything in perspective, doesn't it? Okay, so basically they're screenshots. And we're going to see this right here. Alright, so if you want to watch the whole video, 15 seconds. And there's our object in question. Dun 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 dun. Alright, moving on. Moving on. From the moon, we're going to have a story here of the man who shoots at a UFO. 3.5 decades ago, fighter pilot Oscar Santa Maria Huerta had an Independence Day-like experience when he tried to shoot down a bizarre light bulb craft. Until today, the incident is the only documented case of a military plane flying on an unidentified flying object. Firing on an unidentified flying object. Early in the morning of April 11th, 1980, the 23-year-old lieutenant of the Peruvian Air Force was about to join around 1,800 military personnel and civilians for the daily exercises at La Jolla Air Force Base, 1,000 kilometers south of the Peruvian capital. A pilot who had been flying combat missions since he was 19, Lieutenant Huerta was ordered to take off in his fighter and to intercept the unknown silver object that had been observed hovering near the end of the runway. The strange object was 5 kilometers away, hovering about 600 meters off the ground. It was not responding to any communications. It was in a restricted airspace without authorization, posing a significant threat to national sovereignty, according to the now retired colonel. Colonel Huerta was among the several former military officers, researchers, and others who provided evidence at the big event at the National Press Club in Washington in 2013 in hopes to give pressure to the U.S. government about opening its files on UFO encounters. Colonel Huerta flew to 2,500 meters, shot a burst of 64 30mm shells when he reached the right distance. Even one of those shells would wipe out a car, but all of them had no effect on the object. It then shot rapidly skywards from the base, and Colonel Huerta activated the aircraft's afterburners to chase it. As they reached 84 kilometers from the base in the city of Camara, the UFO came to a sudden stop, prompting him to veer to the side. After turning up and to the right where to try to position another shot, he locked at the target, ready to shoot, but the object made another fast climb that appeared to evade an attack. He tried the same thing 2 more times, but the object kept shooting upwards seconds before he could shoot. When the object reached 1,400 meters above the ground, Colonel Huerta attempted to attack from above, but the UFO shadowed him all the way up to 1,900 meters, way beyond the specifications of his aircraft. He realized he was running low on fuel, losing his capability to attack, so he decided just to fly near the object, get a better look. When he reached 100 meters away, he started to see an object that measured around 10 meters in diameter, with a shiny cream-colored dome on top, similar to a light bulb cut in half. The bottom was a wide, silver circular base that looked like metal. It had no antenna, windows, exhaust, propulsion, jet wings, or other components of a typical aircraft. At that moment, the pilot realized it wasn't a spying device, but a UFO, something entirely unknown. Having not enough fuel, he could not attack, maneuver his plane, or make a quick escape. He was afraid. He made his return, gliding partway and zigzagging to make the plane harder to hit. After he landed, the object stayed in place. He left it for another 2 hours, visible to people at the base while it reflected in the sun. Okay, so here we have another incident of a silly human attacking a spaceship unprovoked. And finally, this one was really fascinating here. Okay, I'm going to have to dig more into the Cern story in an upcoming show. But here's I saw this last week. It says UFO enters portal above the Large Hadron Collider at Cern. Okay, there's this cloud here. I'm going to play this for you. You can look at it. Is this real? Or is this some CGI effect that's happening right here? It has been the fear of some that the mysterious Large Hadron Collider may one day accidentally create a black hole that would swallow the Earth or open a portal to another dimension. Look at this. Dimension through which some evil entity or aliens would emerge. Now, allegedly, something very mysterious has happened as the massive scientific installation. Video footage has emerged on YouTube on 2 occasions when swirling holes formed above the monster scenic experiment run by Cern. And then we see some object apparently going in, and we don't see it back there. So something went in to what was opened up there. Okay, so I want you to check out the video. Any commenters think this was just a thunderstorm manipulated. Okay, so I'm going to leave this all for you now. But quite fascinating what's going on over there with Cern. They are, working diligently. They worked to find this God particle, as they call it, this Higgs boson particle of something that holds everything together in the universe. And having found that, they're continuing to go. They're ramping up their experiments. We've heard stories and rumors that they were closed down. Not the case. They've continued to do things. Now they are continuing to search. Apparently, they've ramped up their energetics pretty high, and they're about to discuss some of their new findings, which are going to be talking about this thing called the Lord particle. The Lord particle. However, there are those out there who are terming this the Satan particle because of the kind of hidden and covert agenda going on behind it. Some of it seems to be experiments that are taking place by those who really don't have an understanding about what's going on. They have mentioned strange things like they're trying to open a door. However, they don't necessarily know what's on the other side of the door. So, imagine that. Silly, silly, silly. And then again, the UFOs, I always find stories where I hear about us humans shooting at spacecraft that they don't know what's there just because. And we have to wonder why intelligent races don't necessarily want to come down here to Earth. Because they know that we are a violent race, that we will shoot at them. So we need to get past this mindset of shoot first and look later, because the military industrial complex has this program out there, Project Bluebeam, that eventually is going to be designed to fool you into believing that the aliens are bad. We need to really get our minds on straight about this to know who's good, who's not. Okay, so there you have it. I'm going to jump away. I'll be back.
It's time for the UF.
Come into our circle, Great Spirit. Fill our souls with peace.
Continue on. So you can see right back here behind me, this is what I'm going to talk about now. Faith. Faith. What is faith? And it's kind of weird having the faith right after the section about UFOs. Like, what, are we supposed to have faith in the UFOs? Is that what it is? Faith in UFOs? No. We're supposed to have faith in God. Faith that the Creator has a much bigger picture than what we're aware of. Faith that there is something more than just the little specks that we are down here on this planet. Faith that there is something bigger and that we are a part of something bigger. That's what faith is about. But faith isn't blind, just saying I blindly believe something that I don't know is real. Faith is knowing something is real and having that absolute confidence in that. I want to read some of this. It's a PDF by Gary Hargrave of Living Word Publications, or the Living Word. I want to read a little bit about this to you. The principle of faith. This is from Hebrews 11:6. But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. If the drive of your heart is to live a life which is pleasing to God, then you must become a person of faith. Without faith it is impossible to please him. For many people it is difficult to understand faith. We seem to have an easier time understanding love or hope. However, everyone who has experienced Christ's salvation has already exercised a certain measure of faith. Salvation was available to you since the moment you were born, but it was only an exercise of faith that you received Christ as your Savior. Faith may be difficult to understand, but it isn't any more complicated than deciding to believe. In John 15:25, Christ said that people hated him without cause. Well, if people reject Christ without cause, then we can choose to believe without cause. That's the reality of faith. You believe because you choose to believe, not because you have reason to believe. Faith is a decision that you must make every day. Every morning when you wake up, you choose to have faith or not to have faith. If you decide to believe today, then there is no reason why you cannot decide to believe tomorrow. Your decision to believe should never be based on your feelings, though, because your natural senses will never give you an accurate picture of what God is doing in your life. It is an important concept to grasp, because the essence of faith is that you believe even when the very things believing for remain unseen. This is confirmed by Hebrews 11:11, which tells us, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. With faith you believe it when you don't see it. So let's look at two scriptures that illustrate how the principle of faith really works. Getting into a boat, Jesus crossed over the sea and came to his own city. And he brought to him a paralytic lying on a bed. Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the paralytic, "Take courage, son, your sins are forgiven." Then he said to the paralytic, "Get up, pick up your bed, go home." And he got up and went home. In this story, the paralytic did not even need to ask Jesus for healing. He and the ones carrying him were focused on Christ, and Christ saw their faith and responded. Contrast this with the next story about how the disciples could not cast out a demon. And when they came to the multitude, a man came to him, falling on his knees before him, saying, "Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic. He is very ill and often falls into the fire and often into the water. And I brought him to your disciples, and they could not cure him." Jesus answered and said, "O unbelieving and perverted generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him here to me." And Jesus rebuked him, and the demon came out, and the boy was cured at once. The disciples came to Jesus privately and said, "Why could we not cast it out?" He said to them, "Because of the littleness of your faith. For truly I say, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it shall move, and nothing shall be impossible to you." Look at the wording of the disciples' questions. Why could we not cast it out? They were trying to cast out the demons by their own strength, separate from Jesus. In the first story, the paralytic and his friends didn't have to pray loudly or work at producing a miracle of healing. They simply focused their faith on Christ. Did the disciples take their faith in Christ in the second story? No. They only asked him why they could not do it. Now look at the wording of Christ's response. Because of your littleness of your faith. I think it is interesting that Christ answers his disciples in this way, but then goes on to say that in order to move mountains, all they would need is faith as a mustard seed, which is absolutely tiny. So really the littleness of faith that Christ is referring to is not the amount of their faith, but their faith's lack of strength in and of itself. Can you in yourself heal someone? Says the answer, of course, is no. I don't necessarily So when the disciples are any different, the only way that we can cause miracles is by focusing our faith on Christ, just as the paralytic did. True faith is faith in Christ. I agree with that absolutely. Faith in the power of Christ. Now, one of the issues that I think is very important is that we understand more of what is this mission of the Christ energy, the Christ consciousness. See, we have the story that wraps it all up in the story of Jesus. Yet, for many, they don't understand that Jesus wasn't born in December, and they don't understand that Jesus was known by Yeshua. So, there is one challenge that I have, that we truly understand who and what this man of God was about. For if we truly don't understand when he was born, and we truly don't understand the nature of the office of the Christ, or the nature of who he is called here on earth, Yeshua, if we are still mistaking his name with the letter J and his date of birth, then we have something to learn. Because if we can't get that right, then how are we expected to understand the true mission of what the Christ energy is about? The Nag Hammadi library tells us that the Christ energy is the spark that was created when the male, the father, and the female mother interacted. And when they interacted, this spark, this divine love came forth. This spark of consciousness, known as the autogens, also known as the Christ consciousness. And this Christ consciousness was then given authority to go and continue to create. It was referred as the Christ consciousness. There wasn't any point in time when this energy was named as Yeshua or Jesus. It was a pure energy that was allowed to go into reality in humankind or all of existence in order to bring it closer to the understanding of the divinity of God. So by understanding the Christ consciousness, because the Christ consciousness is that which was born from the mother and the father, by understanding that, it gives us an opportunity to understand and experience the mother and the father. And the Christ energy, well, that's available for everyone. It is available for everyone, which is why we hear Yeshua say that what he does we can do and more, because he came to show us the example of how we do the things. Now, I have talked a bit more on what I believe the mission was, and the mission of Yeshua was to show us how to get out of this trap that we're in, that we continue to get trapped in this reincarnation cycle, back and back onto this earth. And I think that there is something more out there, because the Nag Hammadi library tells us about these other realms of existence. These other realms, these 4 realms, and then each realm had 3 sub-realms. And then from those came this being, Yaldabaoth, who then went off into this other area and created this other bit of life. Didn't create the planets and the stars. Some of those were already there in place, part of the great creator's design, but created humankind in order to trap an aspect of God in the skin suit. So Yeshua, in my understanding, came to show us how we've been trapped in the skin suit, and how we are trapped in this reality, and how we get out of this reality so we are able to experience these other realms. Because I believe that we are living in an enclosed system, and this enclosed system has a dome over it, the firmament. And this enclosed system keeps us coming back into the same system over and over, because we don't understand there's something more. Yet the mission of Yeshua was to show us there's something more. We don't have to keep coming back to this terrarium. We have the opportunity, through seeing the example that was brought to us on how to get out of this terrarium. We have to live, though, a life of love and kindness to our neighbors, to our friends, to our family. We need to have an undying belief and faith that there is something more out there than what is here in this reality. And if we do all of that, if we have this true faith in what the Christ is about, we truly understand that Christ is simply about freedom. Freedom for us all. Freedom from the traps and the challenges of this physical reality, which in essence is just an illusion. Okay, so that's my take on the matter. I do believe that through the power of the Christ, we do have the ability to heal. So in and of ourselves, alone, without that, says no, but we need to bring that spark of God to do that work. Because we even understand one of the things it said, that within the Nag Hammadi, when Yaldabaoth tried to bring Adam to life, he wasn't able to do so because he didn't have that full spark to understand how to bring that full divinity into it. So we must have faith that this power of the Christ, which is available to all of us, can transform us and help us to understand that there's a much bigger picture. A much bigger picture indeed. So this PDF is available for you. There's 15 pages to it. I've read 5 of them. Read more. It's a very, very good bit of information. All right. And that brings us to a story here I thought would be quite interesting for today. And this is the legendary origins of Merlin the Magician. Most people today have heard of Merlin the Magician, as his name has been popularized over the centuries, and his story has been dramatized in numerous novels, films, television programs. The powerful wizard is depicted with many magical powers, including the power of shape-shifting, and is well known in mythology as a tutor and mentor of the legendary King Arthur, ultimately guiding him towards becoming the King of Camelot. While these general tales are well known, Merlin's initial appearances were only somewhat linked to Arthur. It took many decades of adaptations before Merlin became the wizard of Arthurian legend he is known of as today. It is common belief that Merlin was created as a figure for Arthurian legend. But while Merlin the wizard was a very prominent character in the stories of Camelot, that is not where he originated. Writer Geoffrey of Monmouth is credited with creating Merlin in In 1136 AD, historian Regum Britanniae, The History of the King of Britons, a large portion of Historia Regum Britanniae is a historical account of the former kings of Britain. Merlin was included as a fictional character, although it is likely that Geoffrey intended for the readers to believe he was a figure exacted from the long-lost text. Merlin was paradoxical, as he was both the son of the devil and the servant of God. Merlin was created as a combination of several historical and legendary figures. Geoffrey combined stories of North Brythonic prophet and madman, Myrddin Wilt, and Romano-British war leader Ambrosio Aurelianus to create Merlin Ambrosius. Ambrosius was a figure in Ninus Historia Brittonum. In Historia Brittonum, British King Vortigern wished to erect a tower, but each had to try it would collapse before completion. He was told that to prevent this, he would have to first sprinkle the ground beneath the tower with the blood of a child who was born without a father. Ambrosius was therefore, having been born without a father, so he was brought before Vortigern. Ambrosius explains to Vortigern that the tower could not be supported upon the foundation because two battling dragons lived beneath, representing the Saxons and the Britons. Ambrosius convinced Vortigern that the tower will only stand with Ambrosius as a leader, and Vortigern gave Ambrosius the tower, which is also the kingdom. Geoffrey retells the story with Merlin as the child born without a father, although he retains the character of Ambrosius. In Geoffrey's version of the story, he includes a long section containing Merlin's prophecies, along with two other stories which led to the inclusion of Merlin into the Arthurian legend. These include the tale of Merlin creating Stonehenge as the burial location for Ambrosius, and the story of Uther Pendragon sneaking into Tintagel, where his father Arthur with Ingrain, his enemy's wife. This was the extent of Geoffrey's tales of Merlin. Geoffrey does not include any stories of Merlin acting as a tutor to Arthur, which is how Merlin is most well known today. Geoffrey's character of Merlin quickly became popular, particularly in Wales. From there, the tales were adapted, eventually leading to Merlin's role as Arthur's tutor. Many years after Geoffrey's Historia Regum Britanniae, Robert de Boron composed a poem called Merlin. Boron's Merlin had the same origins as Geoffrey's creation, but Boron places special emphasis on Merlin's shape-shifting powers, connection to the Holy Grail, and the jokester's personality. Boron also introduces Blaise, Merlin's master. Boron's poem, which eventually rewritten in prose as Histoire de Merlin, which also places much focus on Merlin's shape-shifting. Over the years, Merlin was interspersed with the tales of the Arthurian legends. Some writings place much focus upon Merlin as Arthur's mentor, while others did not mention Merlin at all. In some tales, Merlin was viewed as an evil figure who did no good in his life, while in others he was viewed favorably as Arthur's teacher and mentor. Okay, so there's a little bit more. Well, let's see here. Eventually, from the various tales emerged Merlin's downfall at the hands of Vivian, the king of Northumberland's daughter. Arthur convinces Nivane to stay in this castle under Merlin's encouragement. Merlin falls in love with Nivane. However, Nivane fears Merlin will use his magical powers to take advantage of her. She swears that she will never fall in love with him unless he teaches her all of the magic he knows. Merlin agrees. Merlin and Nivane depart to return to Northumberland when they are called back to assist King Arthur. As they are returning, they stop to stay in a stone chamber where the two lovers once died and were buried together. When Merlin falls asleep, Nivane places him under a spell and traps him within the stone tomb where he dies. Merlin had never realized that his desire for Nineveh and his willingness to teach her magical ways would ultimately lead to his untimely death. From Merlin's inception through the writings of Geoffrey, the wizard appeared in many subsequent tales, stories, and poems. Today, Merlin is the most well known for being the wizard who tutored and taught the young Arthur before he grew to become the king of Camelot. It was under Merlin's counsel that Arthur became the king that he was. While this legend continues on today, it is interesting to see that many variations of Merlin, from an evil wizard to a shapeshifter to the one who met his downfall, from teaching his powers to the woman he loved, This powerful and versatile character caught the attention of many people centuries ago and continues to play a prominent role in today's storytelling. So I thought that would be kind of fun to hear a little bit about Merlin, who he was as a character, a combination of a number of characters. We find a lot of inspiration. There's been certainly many stories about Merlin, and I think we can learn a lot when we work to when we look at stories, because stories sometimes are exactly about what they're saying, and sometimes there's something more to the story, a little deeper, a lesson to be learned. And I think we've learned plenty of lessons over the years from Merlin the magician. So there are those who will say Merlin is actual or real character as opposed to just a legendary made-up character. Time will tell, I suppose, how that unfolds. All right, here is a article I wanted to bring up. It says alkaline water kills cancer. How to make it. Whether an environment is acidic or alkaline is determined by its pH. If the pH level is below 7, the environment is acidic. If it's above 7, it's alkaline. Rainwater is said to be neutral because its pH value is 7. However, as far as the human body is concerned, a single pH level cannot be established due to the fact that each organ has its own specific pH value. For example, the human skin has a pH of 5.5, which makes it slightly acidic. The saliva has a pH ranging from 6.5 to 7, while the pH of the digestive tract varies from 1.5 to 7. In a state of good health, the blood pH value is slightly alkaline and ranges between 7.35 to 7.45. The organs that are in charge of maintaining this balance are the lungs and the kidneys. When balance is disturbed, the overall health is affected. There are several reasons why alkaline water is of extreme importance to our health, especially linked to the time we live in. For one thing, modern diet comprising mainly sugar, caffeine, high processed foods, and alcohol makes the body overly acidic, which eventually leads to poor immune system, chronic headaches, and fatigue, as well as a number of digestive issues. If the body loses its natural pH balance, it becomes too acidic or too alkaline. The healthy cells become toxic, which leads to their death. And chronic pH imbalance damages tissues inside the body and may lead eventually to malignancy due to the fact that the body fights to maintain its natural pH by storing excess acidic substances in certain parts of organs, thus increasing their acidity. In time, that results in cell death or cell mutation. Even worse, the dead cells remain acidic in the body, whereas the mutated or malignant cells continue to grow uncontrollably and spread to other parts or organs in the body, a process called metastasis. Cancer cells cannot live in alkaline water. If this chronic pH imbalance is left untreated, it can do a lot of damage to the body. Drinking alkaline water is also important because it provides much better hydration to the whole system, thus improving overall health and well-being. Plus, alkaline water is extremely beneficial for your brain, which is made mostly of water. So how do you make alkaline water? Any water whose pH is between 8 and 9 is considered alkaline, which means it's a base. Below, you'll find how to make your own. Here it says, ingredients: 1 tablespoon of Himalayan salt, purified water, and an organic lemon. It says in a glass jar, fill a glass jar with water, add the lemon slices, make sure you don't squeeze out the juice. Add the salt, cover the jar, leave it overnight at room temperature. Drink 3 glasses of water on an empty stomach in the morning. This homemade alkaline water will create the ideal pH balance in your body, which will reflect in your overall health. Okay? So, never hurts to know something that's going to benefit us health-wise. Never hurts at all. Here's an article. You know what? We're going to hit this article tomorrow. I'm going to jump ahead to this message for today. Comes to us from Quan. It's called Perceiving Reality. Here we go.
Perceiving Reality, Quan, January 6, 2016. Channeled by Daniel Scranton. It is I, Quan. In your perception of reality, you have much to process, much to feel, and much to understand. It is an interpretation of reality that you are experiencing, and that is different for each of you. You are capable of experiencing what is in front of you through several different lenses. The lens through which you interpret reality is often the one that you are most accustomed to using. It is through this lens that you then begin to construct your belief systems. And when you do this, you make sure to filter out any evidence to the contrary, because you want to feel safe. And in order to feel safe, you must convince yourself that you are right, that you have mastered the reality in which you find yourself. So there is reinforcement all around you to convince you that the lens you are using is the correct one. So how do you know whether something is real or whether something is just your perception? Everything is real. Everything is. You are deciding which version of reality you want to experience. You can continue to experience the reality that gives you comfort because it is familiar and predictable, or you can throw all of that out the window and decide that you want to experience reality through a frequency that you set consciously in your beingness. So instead of seeking to change the reality that you are in, the reality that you perceive, simply decide that you want to explore a frequency. That frequency will become your new lens, and you will be surprised by how much you can perceive once you try it on for size, once you give yourself a taste of what it is like to create your reality by the simple act of your perception of it through a different lens, through a more pleasing frequency. I am Quan Yin, and I hold you in my heart.
Alright, so, good message. Brings us to our meditation for today. Just close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And exhale. Take another deep breath. And exhale again. Another breath. And exhale. Now, let's just imagine we're walking along a path in the dark. And as we walk along this path, we're not certain of where we're going. But we have this inner sense of knowingness that if we just follow our feet, trust that we know where we're going, we'll arrive safe and sound. So we have faith that our steps are guided and we continue to move along. And eventually we find ourselves arriving at the destination where we intended to go all along. And we find that our faith is rewarded and we arrive simply by trusting that inner sense. And so we learn that faith, like a muscle, needs to be strengthened. So we imagine ourselves exercising this muscle of faith. And as we exercise this, we find ourselves strengthened. Strengthened beyond that of muscular strength, strengthened in a way that fills our entire being with a confidence and a knowingness. And we understand the importance of faith. And so we strive to put this faith into practice each and every day, knowing that in doing so, we connect with a part of ourselves. So let's just imagine ourselves as we go through this day, exercising faith. Heavenly Father and Mother, we pray this day that we are all able to understand the purpose of faith in our lives. understand the power of the Christ that flows into our lives. And that through this process of faith and understanding, we might continue to grow to be all that you have created us to be. We thank you, Mother and Father, for all of the gifts and the blessings you have provided to us this day, and the opportunities that you provide for us. We pray that we keep our minds and our hearts open to understanding the wisdom that is available to us. And we ask humbly that we are able to share this energy with others as it is shared with us. So let the subconscious mind continue walking the path of faith, seeking to understand more of what faith is and what faith isn't. And let's bring the conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 1, on the count of 3. 3 coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2 coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1 coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, whole. Take another deep breath. Exhale, then open your eyes. That's it, my friends. That's the show for today. Thank you very much for being here. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you find that the information today is helpful. Go back and read the PDF. There's 10 more pages to go of it. Talking about faith, it's always good to practice and make that muscle stronger, because we all have the ability to be faithful. We all have the ability to let the light of the Christ shine through us. So let's go and make those things happen so we have a deeper understanding of what is this connection we truly have with the great Creator. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow. Have yourselves an awesome day. I love you. Keep loving each other. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.